Call the Scottsboro work session Monday, August 15th to order. Invocation given by Mr. Cameron and the pledge of allegiance given by myself.
Almighty God, we give you thanks and praise for your great goodness towards us. We ask you to be with the mayor and council as they go about the public businesses this evening, lead, guide, and direct. And always, at all times, Lord, we call upon you to be with our public safety employees as they go about their dangerous duties. These things we ask in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item is a public hearing, the alcohol license, Susan Webb doing business as Jackson Events LLC. Ms. Phillips, will you go over the investigative report, please?
The applicant is Susan Webb, business name Jackson Events LLC. Type of license is special events retail for the event scheduled for October 8th, 2016. The location is in the parking lot adjacent to the Lackey Law Firm located at 126 East Peachtree Street. There's no record indicated on the background investigation. 5 businesses were surveyed with no objections. One residence was surveyed with no objections and 4 contacts were made with no contact. The nearest church and school footage requirements were met. License application is in order. Health, fire, and building inspections comply, and zoning verification complies.
Thank you. So that being said, this is a time and place for a public hearing. Is there anyone here against this? Is there anyone here against this? Is there anyone here for this? We'll close the public hearing. We'll put it on next week's agenda. Next item is the donation of property to Jackson County Rescue Squad. We did receive a letter from AT that we'll go ahead and go with number 3. Let's skip right over number 2. I'm sorry. The donation of the property to Jackson County Rescue Squad. We did receive a letter from AT that the rescue squad did vote unanimously to accept that donation. Are there any questions on that? We'll put that on next week's agenda as well. And I skipped right over number 2. I apologize for that. It was not intended. It's also a public hearing. Christine Arden with KPS Architects, Veteran Field Renovations, moving on front. Please, ma'am. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Did you feel relieved when I skipped over?
Yes. You have in your packets 4 documents. One of them is a summary of costs associated with the 2-story concession stand changes, and I've also shown that as compared to the original budget that you all approved. Following that is a detailed cost estimate with a breakdown of specifics so that you can see item by item where those costs are. I also have large drawings to show. You have a drawing of the site plan that shows the orientation of the concession stand and taking away the scorekeepers booths that were behind the backstop, also taking away the medical building and the pavilion. one of the reasons why I wanted you to see this is that in the original design, we had the concession stand overhead doors that were serving the customers facing north. But now that we've had to accommodate the exhaust from the fryers through the second story, we've had to orient it facing northwest. And so that's going to be on this side facing northwest. This is where the parking lot is over here. This is the one secondary entrance, the primary entrance. Here's the larger field. And then you have a drawing showing the floor plan. Here's a little perspective up above with some elevations. This shows that the restrooms are back to back on the east side. And then we've got the concession itself on the northwest side. We've got stairs coming up on the south side to the second level. And the second level has 4 positions that are angled facing the backstops. You do see that there are 2 furred-in areas. One is that big exhaust flue that comes from the fryer. And it also helps with kind of keeping the noise down within the crew. We've got maybe 8 people up there. So you had asked me to come back. We met with the mayor, Yvonne, and Brent, and Garry, and went over the costs associated with the option, and then we went and developed the second story option. And we have not released our engineers to do any of the engineering. We're just waiting for approval from you all. But I've also included a schedule, and based on approval of this 2-story option and the new revised budget, we're scheduled to complete the drawings on the 2nd of September. At that point, we would like to be able to advertise for bids. We don't have to release the drawings yet. We just want to advertise for bids so we get the 3 weeks of advertising that we need to do. We'd like to come then to the city council on the 12th. You have to remember that Labor Day weekend is in there, so I think that the next time that you all can vote to issue the drawings for bids on the 12th. And then we would issue them the day after on the 13th and give them approximately 3 weeks to open the bids on the 4th of October. Hopefully award the contract with approval from you all on the 10th of October. And then we're estimating 8 months of completion, so that would put you in June of 2017.
Anyone have any questions for Christina?
Do I see $1,700,000?
That's correct, and what that includes is the cost of construction increased to 1.4. We reduced the contingency to 10%, which is $142,000. We do have actual, plus we need some additional soils testing for the 2-story option. I showed the actual cost of what the topographic survey was compared to what we had estimated. And then my engineers are going to charge me for full design because they're redesigning everything with the 2-story option, so there's additional services, and then our fees based on a percentage of construction based on the state of Alabama sliding fee schedule. So that's where you see all those changes.
I guess my next question is to stay up here. We borrowed $1 million. It's going to cost $1,700,000. Where are we going to get the other $700,000? I don't know, but what do you all know? Anyone do? We don't, I mean, we're in this bond issue for the $3 million, whatever, amount. This is not the only project that we're going to go over on, probably all of them. Someone told me today, yesterday, at the Heritage Center, that $500,000 was not going to do it. And they told me, because I asked you last time you were here, I had heard $2 million for the rec center. We're looking at doubling this $3 million before it's over with. And we talked an awful lot about You sell, I know we say it's gonna be longer down the road, but that doesn't really mean anything. We thought this was gonna cost $1 million, and we're not right, so we don't think, and you sell at the landfill may not be 5 or 6 years, it may be 2 or 3 years. And I know we're gonna have to have the trucks, and that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. And God knows what else we're gonna have to have. So, I mean, how are we gonna do this? Another bond issue? I can't think of any other way but another bond issue. Or borrow a large amount from the bank. I'm just trying to get some clarity in my own mind as to how we're gonna do this, because it's nowhere close to what we started out.
I do want to clarify that the budget for the Heritage Center always was more than what the $500,000 was that the city was going to give them. And they had indicated that they were responsible for everything over that. So that number's always been there. It's just they were only going to receive $500,000 from you all.
But we give them money as well, so is that money what they're going to use? So in essence, we're really doing that as well. I mean, I think it's the reason they wanted to do this, because they weren't making any money. They had no money coming in, but not anything. So I don't, if it gets to be a couple $100,000 more, I don't think they can do that. Maybe I'm wrong. But that's just one little factor when you're talking about 700,000 versus $700,000 versus $1 million. And we haven't even talked about the fire station yet. Maybe I'm the only one concerned.
Well, I think you're gonna have to make some hard choices. Ms. Harding, 1.7, I just can't see 1.7. We're gonna have to find a way to get that number down, and I don't know what that is. Whether you've lost the medical building, but something about 1.7 just doesn't compute. So I don't know what we do to get that number down, but that number's got to come down.
We need to get it to $1 million, so that's what we got.
Well, we are where we're at. I mean, it's, we've got a demolished field sitting over there now, so I'll agree that $1 million would make a heck of a renovation, but we're past that point. We have to build something. My understanding is part of the increases in cost is part of the base has to be built up now. Since we took what was there up, we've got to build that up 4 feet.
Well,
Is that true? Did I hear that?
It's in a floodplain, and so the building itself has to be above the elevation, 1 foot above the elevation that's established by that floodplain. So what we're doing is we're ramping up, but we were always doing that. We have to build that building up.
So that was in the original plan? And we talked about maybe going to 2 stories, was about 100, I don't have my notes from your last visit in front of me, I apologize, but that was adding about $150,000 to add the 2nd story.
Well, it actually went from, the budget for it right now is 200,000, or I'm sorry, 300,000. It was at 180, so it's added about 100,000 to it.
So 100,000 of the increase in the original budget is from the 2nd story on that doesn't make up the $600,000 difference, but that's 100,000 of it, right?
Right.
So I'm just wondering, and I know the dugouts were left out, but I'm wondering where the other $500,000 is coming from. And I just got the plans last week. I haven't had a chance to go through them in detail, but.
Well, there are fabric canopies in there that are at 96,000.
And I saw that, and I think there was some discussion that could be done with fencing at a cheaper rate. Is that
Well, not
correct?
fencing, but the fabric canopies, you might be thinking about the netting.
Okay.
But the
You're right.
netting cost that we got was nearly 93,000, and we recommended that we go with the fencing at 30,000. It's much more durable and just makes more sense. And you've got so much fencing out there, you're getting an economy of scale as opposed to, building the netting. But these fabric canopies are like those tinsel fabric canopies you see over at the summer fall. So it's certainly something that could be done later. They're actually supported off the poles for backstop fencing.
Any other questions?
So that's approximately $100,000 that we can do at a later date, right?
That's right.
What would be your next recommendation as far as things that are not crucial at this juncture?
Well, I think that in the plans, you see the stairs that are serving the second floor is actually locked in as opposed to just being a metal stair. I think I made a recommendation to the mayor that that's certainly driving the cost up. I think you could just go with an open riser metal stair and not have to spend the money on the concrete block for that. And that makes sense. I think that way that you don't have an area underneath the stair that's kind of a useless area.
Do you have an approximate?
I can't tell you approximately what it is, but I certainly can get that information for you.
Looking at that, can I assume that is much less than $100,000?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yes.
May I ask at what point are we going to talk about this additional money for all of these projects? But you can't do all this unless we approve all that extra money, correct?
That's correct.
And we can't do it unless we figure out where to get it, right? So when are we going to do that?
Well, and I will say this, the statement was made when we made the decision to move forward on the projects, that when the bond issue money was gone, the projects would have to be cut. So, I think, and that's the reason I'm saying that you have to get the number down on this project, because every extra dime we put into it is a dime that we're taking out of another. Right? So we've got to figure out where we're at and how we're going to get this project back on its feet and finished in some kind of neighborhood of where the original budget was. And I think to do that after professional fees and all, we've got to get down in the 1.3 to 1.4 range, to be able to survive.
And we did, when we had the meeting, we did show where we currently were with the one-story concession, and it was in that range.
But again, this is not the biggest project. The rec center possibly going to be close to 2.
Do you have any adjusted budgetary numbers on the rec center renovation?
It is around $2 million right now, but there's scope in it that we don't feel is that we need to talk to the committee about if we are interpreting scope. There's some code issues that we need to talk about on that. So we've been just holding off until we know which direction this project's going. Then we need a meeting on the rec with the building committee just to look at the scope of what we've budgeted in that right now. We've had all of our engineers and all of the pool consultant out, and we feel like the scope has crept up from that, and it's possible that not all of that needs to be done at this time.
Well, I will tell you, I'll have the same position on that. That number just isn't even in the hemisphere of where we are able to be. So, we're going to be right back here in a few months having the same conversation again. So we need to figure out again our wants and our needs, and we've talked about that from the beginning of this process.
You may have to go to a 3-project deal, possibly even a 2-project deal.
Yeah, the ball fields are torn down. We have to save our kids. Get one built eventually. I guess we've already cut from, what was the original pricing? I know we already cut some from the plans. What was the highest amount, I guess?
I think the highest amount was about at 1.8. I can't recall from the other day when we were meeting, but I think it was. We cut out some specialty lighting that was driving the cost up, so that's something that's not in here now. And the power associated with that specialty lighting, because it's going to be done very different than the way it is out there as it exists.
What other questions? I know that, what about the dugouts? Are they still blocked in?
They are. And they're split face block, they've got integral color in the block, it's not painted.
But they're not completely blocked in, is that what you're asking?
The one plans that I saw, the back was blocked.
Back wall is, but if it
The
ends.
front had like 2 feet of block. Would it be any cheaper to go fence all the way around and let the airflow go through that?
Sure. Fencing is cheaper than block. We do need that 2-foot, it's about a 30-inch,
In front.
because it is a retaining wall for how we're ramping up to the concession stand. So it's acting as, and also that's where the fencing is supported from.
Hey, Christine, did the original budget that came to us back the first of the year, did that include ramping up 4 feet?
No, it did not.
Thank you.
We did not know that it was a floodplain until we had done the topographic survey.
I'm just looking at the original budget and I'm trying to add it all up so that would make a little bit of sense.
What was the difference in the dugouts?
The dugouts are about $16,000 a piece. So there were 6 of them that were not in that original budget.
It's almost $100,000 difference from the original budget, I believe.
Yvonne, they were talking about the contingency plan. What is that as far as, I mean, we're already looking in June for a completion date.
We're just gonna move everything with playing and play baseball 2 nights there and softball 2 nights. And Saturdays, probably.
Any other questions for Christine?
I do want to point out that even though I have that number in there for contingency, that's not something that is part of the construction cost. It's something you hold on your side. So I just want you to know that that's not something we're putting in as an allowance or anything for the contractor. That's just something you hold on your side for the budget.
Anything else for Christine?
Building that up, for that concession stand, where is that in this cost structure? What is it lumped under?
It's lumped under all of the grading.
The grading, so grading only.
Grading and, I mean, it's under grading and there's some, I mean, the playing field grade is just what it is on top of that, but it's under the grading.
So from what I'm seeing here, that's not a significant cost.
Yeah, you
So I'll ask again, you said the fabric canopies were something that I asked your number 2 thing that could be looked at as a possible cost savings. Did I get an answer on that?
Yes, it's something that can be done later. It's $96,000.
I understand that was number 1. What's number 2?
I mean, number 2 was the stairs, doing just the
that's right.
metal stairs,
Okay.
the open stairs.
But we didn't know what that number was.
That's correct.
Well, since we don't know what that number is, do you have a third one?
Fence dugouts, W.
Yeah, we could do fencing for the dugouts instead of, the split face concrete block.
You gotta do the cost savings on that.
Well, the fencing for the dugout, the fencing for the backdrops or the backstops were, I think, 30,000 a piece. So you could probably use that number in lieu of, that's because it's going up 15 and 20 feet as well. So there's some support with that. So you could probably, it's not going to be 15,000 with the, with the block.
I had mentioned this to someone before, and I'm not saying this is a solution, but I am curious. Because, the major portion is in the drainage and things of that nature. There's 4 baseball fields here. Are all of those utilized? Is there a possibility that we hold off on one of the fields at this point? I'm searching for options, right?
Yeah, I need to ask Yvonne that question.
We use them, but
And can you give us an approximate number on if we held off on doing one of the smaller fields, what kind of cost savings that would be?
Well, one of the things is, I'd just like to request to be able to look at those numbers and get those back to you, because they're buried in a lot of this site work with the utilities and site work. So, you could probably, for the sake of what we're talking about, we could probably take all of the site work costs and just divide that by 4. Now, that's not going to be equitable because there's a bigger field and there's smaller fields, but that's probably one way to approach it in the short term without us getting.
Again, I think what we're looking for is something that we can do to get the number down to a point that we can live with. Right now, and I don't speak for anybody but myself, but 1.7 is not a number that I can live with.
Anyone else have anything? Are there any other comments, questions?
Did you ever say, did we ever figure out when we're gonna talk about this? Or what, are we gonna do that? Because right now, we don't have a clue.
Right now, we don't have a baseball field. This is the first project on the agenda, so I would think that we would try to take care of it first.
Even at 1.7?
I'm not saying that, I'm just saying that we need to look at all options, and we've got to have a baseball field. It's the only thing. Right now, we have a rec com that's still being able to be utilized. If someone else has any other suggestions?
I think we need to get have our baseball fields
But we are gonna have to talk about it, right?
Yes.
We're gonna have to come to a solution from somewhere.
No money is allocated until the council tax and allocated money to the railroad contract.
It's pretty obvious that the $1 million that was presented to us for the project is, we're not going to come in source for it.
But then, what we said at the very beginning is, when the $1 million is gone, it's up. So that was just, we didn't do nothing, right? Some of us was concerned about the 3 gauge, one of us was. And then we're talking almost double, we're probably double that. I just don't know where we're gonna go with this thing. We don't need to do another bond issue, and I don't know where else you're gonna get the money. 1.4 is no better than 1.7, just because we said a million here, a million there, half a million here, half a million, which is a lot of money. And that's all I have to say about it.
Thank you. Any comments?
Yes,
Any questions?
public hearing.
Yes.
Right.
I do not hesitate to make a comment, especially on a public hearing. I want to express appreciation to Mr. Smith and the gentleman over here that concerned about the cost overruns. Hey, I'm a taxpayer, all right? Other folks right here as a taxpayer. This business with the extreme cost overrun is not acceptable to this taxpayer anyway. You know, you've got to do something. I would encourage this city council, this citizen encourages this city council to work together with the mayor, with the contractor, with whoever else is out there with Vaughn to come to a reasonable solution to this. These gentlemen over here are absolutely correct. We cannot afford, you cannot afford, this city cannot afford to extend itself out over and beyond this this amount of money that you've allocated. That's just the bottom line of it. You can't do it. And particularly, don't forget now, you've got landfill obligations. And as Mr. Smith has said, you not only have landfill obligations coming up, you've got equipment obligations coming up. And this is going to be expensive. So please, I as this citizen will say, I'm not afraid to stand up here and speak at a public hearing. Work together, reach a solution on this. There's got to be a solution. A 20% overrun, they can understand that. If it means cutting out that upper level on this, do it. If it means cutting the ball fields from 4 to 2 or 3 to come within the budget, do it. It's mandatory that you do what is necessary to manage the money of the city in the most equitable manner possible and to be the citizen stewards. You can't overrun the budget by an extreme amount, going up 1.7, even 2 million, and then talking about the pool. You can't overrun the city's budget. You just can't do it. And it's already been previously mentioned. You've got the Heritage Center project that's ongoing. You know, to take away from one to do the other, that's not right either. You know, y'all approved it. There's been dispute about it. There's been argument about it, but it's on y'all. You got to do what's right for the citizens. Thank you.
Any other comments?
I've been listening to this for, I don't know, 3 or 4 months. For those who don't know me, my name's Brian Dawson. I'm Scottsboro Rec Comps, maintenance supervisor for the ground. I'd like to put out there, I don't think going from 4 fields to 3 would benefit us any at all. And I only say that because if you look at where we're going as a society with baseball in particular, 15 years from now, the high school baseball day is probably going to be over. I don't know if guys have been watching, but for example, last night the American Legions have made a resurgence in America, played the championships last night. Colleges no longer come to high school baseball games because we've started the seasons so early that while the college baseball coaches are playing, high school's playing. So tournaments is where most of our, not only revenue, but that's where most of our kids are going to be seen. And I think that cutting the only field that you can play on above 13 years old would greatly reduce the number of kids' opportunities that we have in the next 15 years. Because I assume this field's going to be here for more than 5 or 10 years. So we got to think long term. You know, I have a son that plays baseball who is 9 now. But what are we going to do when we're 18? Is he going to have to skip 7th and 8th grade baseball because we don't have a 13-year-old field to play on? Because the high school field, obviously we've seen over the last 2 years that I've been here in Scottsboro, is not utilized by the age of 13 to 16 years old at all. I know this because they're at my fields in my complex, every day practicing there in my batting cages, and they play on our fields. So obviously, there's an issue with where we can go. Now, I understand money-wise, it's, well, if we cut one field, you know, we'll save, I don't know, probably $65,000 because you're not going to laser grade 350 feet of baseball field. But in the grand scheme of things, 10 years from now, when high school baseball numbers drop down because all these kids are now being recruited and playing travel ball, they're going to leave Scottsboro and they're going to go somewhere else and pay and play. And I know this because I do it now. As a travel ball parent for the last 2+ years, I've spent year before last in Albertville, I spent $475 in 4 days playing in an all-star tournament down there. Now, why do we do that? Some of it's money with bidding, some of it's because our fields are 185 feet, theirs are 200. So just that 15 feet dictates where a tournament's going to happen at, let alone if you took away an entire baseball field. I think Mr. Morgan is right with we have to find a solution. I think the solution is out there if we look at it as an individual entity. Some of you guys had came into the RECCOM when we were proposing to rebuild Veterans Complex. And I had put together a packet, and in that packet, and I wish I had brought one with me, was a quote from River City Athletics, who built Calhoun and Sneed college baseball fields. Re-laser grading those fields, leaving the existing irrigation in it, was $180,000 for 4 fields. New, solid, dirt, everything. Moving backstop to back 5 feet gives us the 200 foot with a 12-foot tall fence in center field as opposed to the 6-foot fence we have now. So instead of having to rebuild a field, we could raise the fence up 4 feet. And it changes the length of the field. So I do agree that we have to come to something because it is taxpayers' money. But I do believe that there is a way we can make it work and be able to keep our entire complex. Whether that means we go 1 story on a concession stand, that's kind of over my head, you know, out of my scope of things. But I do believe if we got into the nitty-gritty of it, if we really dug deep into what we're doing and who is going to build it for us, I think is the most important thing. Who are we contracting it to? You know, I don't know what was done with the soccer complex, but just look at the money we've put into that thing since it's been built. Just since I've worked at the RECCOM, which is only about a year long, I've put my yearly budget into that field every year and still beg for money to put in it because of things that are wrong from the get-go. You know, it was kind of handed over, it was built, it was done, and since then we've had irrigation issues. Well, we know the irrigation at Veterans works, so maybe we keep it. I was told if we mark it in GPS locations that they can laser grade it and leave the irrigation that's there. I don't know what that saves you, but from my own experience, it's around $15,000 a field. You can pick up, what is that, $45,000, $50,000 you can save right there with what's already in the ground. You don't do anything. So I think there is a way we can do it. I think it's just a matter of how we look at it, how we approach it, as opposed to, are we just paying somebody that's going to bid it out to the lowest bidder and then we're 1.5 or whatever we are over. I think there is a way of doing it. I agree with Mr. Morgan on that one. I just don't think that way can be with losing a field. Especially a field that, I mean, I'm not from here, but I'm assuming some of you played on. I mean, it's been there that long. So obviously it's been utilized for 30+ years. So I don't think we can just cut it out and say, well, we're going to save 60 grand. In the grand scheme, and what's $60,000 if we're talking 1.7 million? You know, that would be where I would look at it and go, yeah, we saved 60 grand, but you still spent $1.6.5 million, and we lost the field. So that's my thank you.
Can I say one thing? If it was $60,000, I would not recommend losing a field. Well, let me just say that. If it's $300,000, I'd look at losing a field. And I would be very interested in anybody's recommendation on how we get the cost down. Quite frankly, I don't care how we get the cost down, just so we get the cost down. Competitiveness is one way that we can achieve that. I lost Ms. Marty. No. Okay. One question I didn't get to ask, but I would be interested in if we could forward a request. I'd like to know how much we've spent on professional services thus far in the contract. What our commitment is, I should say, maybe not spend.
We can find that out, Tony. Anyone else have any comments? Mark?
Patrick, I'd just like to say real quick that I don't disagree with anything I've heard here today. I don't think it's an option to go over budget that much. But I would like everybody to consider alternate ways that we could help generate revenue that might help pay for the fields. And one of the things that we've seen in our travels with baseball is in particular the Field of Dreams in Coleman that was wiped out by a tornado a few years back. And one of the things they've done, is they've added brick pavers all the way up through the entrance. I'm no mason, but I'm guessing you're talking about a $5 or $6 paver that they sold for $100 a piece, okay? And then there's a fountain with a granite wall that looks similar to the wall right behind you. And there's corporate sponsorships on 18 by 18 tiles, and I bet you those weren't $100 a piece. I don't know what they cost. And I'd go a step further, and I'd sell the rights to name the 4 fields. And I don't know what the cost would be for that, but I'd say it'd be in excess of $15,000 a field. Now, you may not raise your $500,000. At a high level, a real high level, you got a $500,000 problem here. If I'm looking at this in a black and white business perspective. I don't know that you close that gap, but if you chipped away at 100, 150, 200,000, it's a step in the right direction. And I think we got people in this town, in the business world, that would write some of those checks, that would help out, and maybe have an in memory of paper. Even if you sold 100 of them, it'd certainly be worth looking at doing. You know, I appreciate the hard work that you guys have put into this, every one of you, and I know that we all want the same thing. We all want Scottsboro to be the best it can be. I believe that sports tourism is an absolute beautiful revenue stream that fits what we've got. I believe we're smart enough to have a bass tournament and a baseball tournament in the same weekend, and we've certainly got the facilities to pull it off. We've talked to the USSSA director, Donnie Darby. He's been down here. I think he hosted 7 or 8 tournaments in Scottsboro this past year. I don't think you really get concerned about what you make selling hot dogs or what you make charging people to get into the ball game. The bigger fish that you're going to catch there, pardon the pun, is going to be the tax revenue that it brings into the city. Bass fishermen spend a lot of money. We want them all. But these baseball moms are eating at Ruby Tuesdays. They're eating at Buena Vista. They're eating at the docks. They're not eating bologna sandwiches in the parking lot. Okay, they're going to Walmart every day. Believe me, mine does it, and I live that. Okay, I'm just saying that this is an opportunity to continue to drive revenue through our city, which in turn turns into tax dollars. At the end of the day, I feel strongly that if you lose one of your fields, you cut out an age group. I don't know what age group that would be. But I'd just like to challenge everybody to think of alternate ways that we could help close the gap on this that might involve some independent money or industry money that would ease the burden a little bit.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, we'll close that public hearing then. Thank you for everybody who made a comment, stepped up there to the mic. We'll go to number 4, the resolution to award dumpsters and roll-off bid solid waste department. Ms. Phillips.
The solid waste department solicited bids for 4-yard containers, 8-yard containers, 20-yard roll-offs, and 40-yard roll-offs. We posted 1 bid, mailed 5 bids, and received 1 bid. The bid was from Waste Equip. It is recommended that the bid be awarded to Waste Equip as the only responsible bidder that met specifications.
Put that on next week's agenda.
I just have one question about that. When we only have one bid response, do we verify that single bid is within the market, competitive in the marketplace?
I would assume so, or the bid committee would not recommend to you that you accept it.
With one bid, can't we negotiate?
Yes, sir.
Maybe we need to negotiate.
That's up to the bid committee.
We'll go to number 5, the resolution surplus equipment street department. Ms. Phillips.
The street department has the following property that they would like to surplus: an AMCO lift hydraulic vehicle hoist and a bushwhacker bush hog. They would like to place these on gov deals with the money being put back into the capital outlay account.
Any questions on that? No, we'll put it on next week's agenda as well. We'll go to reports, Mayor. I don't have anything. Mr. Wallace.
Thank everybody for coming out.
Mr. Smith.
I'll have a thing.
Mr. Stewart.
Well, yes, I do. I'd like to thank everybody for coming. I know this is a very deep subject for all of us to have to deal with right now, but we think we need to put our best foot forward as a city and do the right things to save money, do it correctly. But let's do it right also. Let's make it look nice so we have something that we are proud of. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Mr. Miller.
I don't have anything.
The only thing I'd like to add, kind of what Tony Garry was saying, was we worked so hard on the bond issues, the $3 million in saving quite a bit of money on that, and the first project looks like it's going to be where it is. And I agree wholeheartedly with what Mr. Smith and Mr. Longstreet was talking about as far as definitely trying to save as much money as we possibly can, but we have to look at the return on investment that we want to spend and do and get the facility that we actually want to bring in those tournaments. Because just like what Brian was saying, that's where it's going now, is the travel law. So we have to work together and find a solution and try to get it done. So with that, we'll adjourn. Thank you all for coming.